Hey guys, I'm Brandon Jaffe with Inspired Resolutions, and I wanted to uh, address a couple of things. We just got done with the Hope for Parents with Struggling Teens group, and I had some points that I wanted to go over. But before I do, I just want to express to everybody, number one, I hope everybody is safe. It is um, the 1st of June, and there's a lot of craziness going on in the world. There's a lot of mixed feelings, intense feelings. There's looting and rioting and tons of differences of opinions on what's going on. And I'm not going to offer my opinion, but I do want to remind all you parents out there that through this crisis of the pandemic and the rioting, we have an opportunity. We have an opportunity to stick to our morals, stick to our values, remain cool, calm, collected, and not just teach, but model for our kids how to healthfully uh, get through crisis times. And regardless of what your beliefs are, your political views are, you do have a responsibility to your children to behave in a certain way, to show them that even when things are not going well and not going fairly, you have a duty to show them how you want them to behave, and they will mimic that. They will give that back to you, and it's hard, especially during these trying times. So I hope everybody is healthy. I hope you are safe. I hope you're taking care of your family. And I pray every day that our country can get to a stable and healthy place. Um, Tonight we talked about a few great, we had a few great topics come up. Number one, there was the topic of having one parent who maybe can't get control of their anger, and the response to their children is mean and angry, and they're not yet able to respond in a healthy way. Um, and that dynamic is hard because in the moment, that parent always thinks that, hey, the other parent's not being hard enough or tough on the kids enough, and they're not going to teach the right lesson. But uh, we all know that yelling and the angry responses don't go anywhere that is good. And so when you have that dynamic, it is hard, but sometimes you've got to accept it. And as a couple, you've got to admit what the dynamics are and who should be the spokesperson, and kind of help each other navigate through keeping the temperament low, even if that means the angry parent has to step away. Um, the in talking about that, a parent brought up the idea that their child often says, "Hey, keep this secret from dad. I don't want dad to know." And as tempting as it might be to keep a secret because you don't want the other parent to get too angry, that isn't healthy. And I never express to your child, I can't keep this secret. Um, we've got to find a way to address the elephant in the room, and that's how do we engage the other parent in a conversation about their anger and about their responses to the child. And if you can't do it on your own, as a family, you need to seek help. You've got to find a professional to help you out with that. And it's the job of the cool, calm, collected parent to find the right time and the right way to discuss with the other parent getting help. Okay. And if that parent refuses to get help, well, you get help and start with a professional ahead of them and hope that you can invite them in on the process. But you don't keep secrets, and that can be hard because you're keeping secrets in protection of your child. But we don't do what's healthy just because we're trying to mitigate an unhealthy circumstance. Okay. when Now, one thing you can do is encourage, is if your child comes and says, hey, I want you to wait to tell dad. I want to tell them in my way or on my own or a little bit later. Give them a time to process that and do something like that. It's different when they say, hey, can you not tell mom or dad yet? I'm not ready. That's different than saying, don't tell mom or dad. Okay, we never keep that secret. And they'll try to suck you in by saying, well, I can't trust you. Well, you know what? Tell them, no, you cannot trust me to keep a secret from your father or from your mother. Okay. And now there's one exception to this, and that's if the other parent is abusive. Now, if that parent is abusive, I implore you to get help now. Okay, this isn't even a question, because after you hear this, you're going to be asking a professional to help you navigate through the abuse situation. But outside of that, we've got to work on healthy family situations, regardless of somebody in the family behaving in an unhealthy way. The next topic that came up is the idea that there are a lot of kids today, I think this generation especially, who are being diagnosed with things like ADHD and depression and anxiety, but what's manifesting is their explosiveness and their irrational emotional responses to certain situations. And I challenged everybody to kind of start thinking of symptomology and diagnosis, and challenge the professionals who are giving these diagnoses, because a lot of kids, for whatever reason, the state of the world or something going on genetically in people, I don't know what it is, but I've noticed that there's a lot more explosiveness going on, and what I believe is intermittent explosive disorder being diagnosed as ADHD, anxiety disorder, and depression, okay, and bipolar as well. It's really important to understand at least somewhat what these diagnoses are. For instance, with ADHD, often just the lack of attention in one area should not be the diagnosis, yet a lot of professionals will give that diagnosis. It's pretty profound, and the inattention and the hyperactiveness and the symptomology for ADHD has got to be affecting many areas of the life. When you diagnose with anxiety, that anxiety has to be inappropriate for the situations arising in that child's life, and be getting in the way of their functioning significantly. Okay, with depression, same thing. It's got to be an inappropriate response to whatever triggers, or it might be there are no triggers and you're depressed. That would be a depressive disorder. But there's got to be two kind of elements. Number one, the response has to be inappropriate for whatever triggers and circumstances are going on in that person's life. And then also, that response has to be getting in the way of functioning in multiple areas of the child or the adult's life. Okay, it's not just, hey, I have ADHD when I go to school, or I'm depressed Monday through Friday when I have school, and on the weekends my depression lifts. That's not an appropriate diagnosis when those types of things are going on. The next subject that we talked about is right now we've got two things going on. Parents of younger children are homeschooling and being given an absurd amount of responsibility to teach their children, right? Because the schools just weren't prepared for this pandemic. And so we've got parents who are still working through the pandemic and being given an inappropriate amount of, an unreasonable amount of work to try and educate their child. And then we've got the other side where some of the parents of high schoolers are going, I can't get my child to do anything. The schools have dropped the ball and aren't setting up enough routine for my child to feel like they have to do anything. And so the battle and the effort becomes, they're overwhelmed with trying to get their child to get up, do their homework, go to bed on time, and have some semblance of a routine. The teenager is just completely shutting down and doing nothing, staying in the room, playing video games, staying up late at night, and getting up really late. Now, it's easy in both situations to try and do everything, right? Over here, to try and get your child to, you put exorbitant amounts of effort, unreasonable effort, and it's kind of insane because you know it's not going to work, right? But you keep putting that effort and you get overwhelmed with trying to get them to do something that you're not going to be able to get them to do. Instead of letting go and looking for another area to put your energy into, and fostering maybe the relationship and saying, hey, look, right now is not the time, you keep focusing regardless of the damage being done to the relationship. And I totally get it, because as a parent, you believe, I have to make sure my child's successful. And it's hard as a parent to give up any moment where you feel you have to intervene. Well, insanity is doing the same thing over and over again, and insanity always damages relationships, and in the long run, damages the health of the whole family. Over here, you've got the parent who feels pressured because they're going to be judged if they don't get their child to do all their work, and if they don't do the homeschooling perfect, and they have to work, and they have to clean, and now they have to do homeschooling. And so even though it might get you in hot water with school, you only have so much to give. You can only give what you have to give. You still have to provide for your family. You still have to do what you've got to do to keep the household functioning. And you might have only 30 minutes to give to your child for education. I get that some people are going to totally disagree with this, but you only have what you have to give. And a ragged, run-down, miserable parent who's given more of themselves than they have to give, in the long run, is going to cause more damage than just saying, hey, I cannot fulfill the expectations of the teachers or the schools or whoever it is that has these expectations. I mean, this is how much I have to give. I have to balance and not become overwhelmed. Give it a good effort, but you cannot become too overwhelmed for too long, and you have to balance your life out, even when there's a bunch of people telling you what you have to do, when it's unreasonable, okay? And that's hard to do, because your parent mind is saying you've got to do anything and everything you can, regardless of how it's damaging you. But remember, it's not just damaging you, it's damaging the other siblings in the home, it's damaging your marriage, it's damaging anybody who loves you. So never give more than you have to give, okay? Now, one of the things that gets in the way of letting go and saying, I have no more to give, is that parents they refuse to recognize that sometimes you have to let your child fail. Okay. We can all say, hey, my greatest lessons have come from my greatest failures. However, as a parent, it is so hard to just know, hey, I've given everything I have to give. There's no more for me to control. I've got to let my child fail. Now, I'm not saying let your child fail because that's a good life lesson. I'm saying after you have said, I've given everything I have, everything healthy that I can give, I have offered resources, I have had the discussions with them that I can have. After you've done everything that you can, that's when you let go and you make the relationship come first, your boundaries, and then sometimes you got to focus on the other relationships in the family, not that problem child, so to speak. Guilt, like I talked about before, often gets involved. When you're worried about who's judging you, whether it be your parents who think that they were the perfect parent, or it be your neighbor who has the most perfect kids ever, and they have boatloads of advice to give you on how you should raise your child, a lot of times your fear, guilt, or fear of judgment will get in the way of you being able to recognize when it's time to let go. That led to a discussion about enabling. And I can't tell you how often I'll be working with somebody and they're able to snip the enabling cord. And when they stop enabling, they become frustrated because somebody else in that dependent's life jumps into the codependent role that you just left. And then they start enabling that person. And what the parent who stopped the enabling, what you want to do is get in the way of that and stop that. But that's you jumping back into the role of enabling. So sometimes it is a bummer, but sometimes when you stop the enabling, your dependent or that unhealthy person in your life will find somebody else to enable them. And you got to step out of the way and say, hey, I'm doing what's healthy. I'm doing what I can. I cannot keep inserting myself into this person's journey, even when it's your child, okay? The last point that I wanted to leave everybody with tonight is when you see that your child's failed, or you see your child is going through a lot of issues at school or in the world today, just with not being able to see their friends, or they're going through depression, or they're going through difficult times, or they are super defiant and making poor decisions, I want to leave you with this. Most children are resilient. Okay. If you're doing what you can, maintaining a relationship with your children, most of your children are going to come out okay. They're going to go through the journey. They're going to learn lessons. They're going to be successful, awesome people. I know that not everybody turns out well, but I will tell you this: most of your children are resilient, and most of your children are going to be okay. They might not have the journey. They might not stay on the exact journey that you wanted them to, that you fantasized about, but in general, people are pretty darn resilient. And if you're the kind of parent that's watching a video like this, or looking for answers, or even cares about parenting in a healthy way, most likely your child is going to be resilient, and they are going to be okay. I appreciate you listening and watching this video, and I hope to see some of you soon in the parenting group, and I will try to keep up on, do a better job of keeping up on these videos so that people who can't make the group can get some of the information that we talked about. Thanks a lot. Have a nice night.